Hey everybody, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I'm Brad, here with Doug.
Hey,
Life is Strange, Double Exposure, The Return of Max Caulfield.
I'm so excited for this review. I can't tell you this. Genuinely excited for this review. I don't want to hype it up too much, but like I'm very excited about this.
I have already shared several of my thoughts on this with Doug,
Yeah,
and we'll get into that. So for those of you who don't know Life is Strange, I feel like it's one of those like just under like the like well-known series thing. Like it's
yeah.
trying to get to be a well-known thing, but it's not quite there yet. These are kind of those cinematic narrative adventure games. You're walking around, you're talking to people, you're investigating things, you're clicking on stuff. It's just kind of that. This is
And
actually the
you love
fifth
these
game.
things, right? You like
I do,
love
I
these
do.
things.
I love these. I very much love all of the Life is Strange games, all of them. We'll come back to that point in a minute. But this is the fifth one. The series has been developed by a couple different people. So this was done by Deck Nine, who did Before the Storm and True Colors. Don't Nod did one
Hmm.
and two. So they've done some of the most recent one, which is True Colors as well. I want to start this by saying this is the worst game in the series, and I kind of liked it, but I also kind of didn't. I have very mixed feelings on this. This is why Doug was like so excited about this because I honestly don't even know where I'm going to go with this because there are parts of this game that I think make it one of my favorite games of this year, and then there are
Yeah.
parts of this game that make me kind of hate it. I just want to like, and here's the issue that I feel like I'm going to have with this. The stuff that I don't like is all story spoilers, so I don't want to talk about any of that. I don't feel like it's fair to talk about any of that. So all the stuff I want to talk, I can like feel like, oh yeah, I can talk about that. I can talk about that. Are all the things that I absolutely loved, but there's this
Yeah.
lingering last 3 or 4 hours of this game that's just going to linger in the back of my mind, going like, you're telling all these good things about this game, but those last 3 to 4 hours are bad.
I remember like because I think at least I was listening to like previews and stuff, and everyone's like really glowing previews. And then I just remember like I think you sent me a snip of like the open critic, and you're like,
Yep.
oh, and it was like 55 or something. Because it was really odd listening to a bunch of
It's
like really previews that were like glowing previews about very specifically the first two episodes, and then when the reviews
yes.
finally hit, it was like, oh no.
And here's kind of the weird setup for this is because it's Square did this thing where like if you pre-ordered the super deluxe, you could play the first two episodes a week early. So everybody played the first two
Oh,
episodes. And the first two
interesting.
episodes are fantastic. Like some of the
Yeah,
best of the series. Like if you're
yeah.
finished episode two and and that's where it was. Like if I finished episode two, I was like, screw Astrobot and Rebirth and Like a Dragon. This is my game of the year. This is so good. I forgot how
Yeah.
much I love Max. They're doing some great stuff with this. I love it. I love it. I love it. And that's kind of where everybody left it. And then reviews didn't come out, I think, until maybe the day before, like a week later. And all of
Yeah.
a sudden, I think it was like an even 70. It was like there were some eights and there were some threes. And
Yeah.
I understand both ends of that. And that's kind of where I got where it's like, okay, so I kind of came in having this knowledge of like, all right, it's going to be great. It's going to be, oof, okay, what's going to happen? So the
Yeah.
first, and I'm going to give it three. A lot of people I think have kind of given it two. I'm going to say the first three chapters are
Yeah.
actually very good. Like one and two are like incredible. Three, you kind of get this feeling of like, ooh, we're not going to land this plane. We're not going to, this ain't going
Yeah.
to go good. So the last two are just bad. It very much just feels like we couldn't put it together. We had 100 different directions we wanted to go in. The ending itself is kind of just a mess and just abrupt. There's so many things to talk about at the end. But I want to start with just kind of talking about what this is, because I think that the thing about this is it's very interesting because Life is Strange has kind of been that Final Fantasy anthology series where it's just like disconnected stories, all
Hmm.
don't not originally said they kind of wanted them all to take place in this world, but there's only really I can think of one character who's crossed over game to game that we've ever seen before.
Hmm.
So Max being the original protagonist coming back was like a huge deal because she was so good in the first game. It's probably 90% of the reasons why I love the first game. And that's what this does really well too, is just Max comes back and is incredible. She's great to play as. They do a great job of explaining like what's happened to her because this is about 10 years later, what's happened to her. You see all this evolution from the first game. You see all the way that their experiences in the first game have kind of shaped her and how that's kind of changed the way that she interacts with people. It's all so good, and you get all that in those first two chapters.
Hmm.
And then so what happens is after you get the first two chapters, which are basically establishing Max as this artist in residence at this college. She's a photographer. She's been there for a few months. She's got all these really good relationships, connecting with people. You have your couple romance options. All that stuff of like the interpersonal stuff takes place in the first two chapters. Super well written, super fun, super entertaining to go through. Great stuff. I do want to say though that if you have not played the first game, this does rely a lot on that first game.
Sure. Yeah.
There's actually a really interesting scene where it lets you decide, because the ending, Life is Strange, has two different endings.
Mm-hmm.
I won't spoil it. I don't know if I should spoil it. I won't spoil it. But anyway, what happens is Chloe, who's your best friend / kind of girlfriend / whatever in the first game,
Mm-hmm.
one of your new friends was snooping through your wallet, just goes, "Oh, who's this?" And then you have to tell them the story of what happened to Chloe. So it's "Oh,
that's
this
really cool.
with her, or this happened with her." Yeah. It was a really good moment, because it's also the first time that you really see Max hit this trauma point of everything's great. I'm in this new school. Oh my gosh, everything's great. And now it's poof, okay, but there's some shit that happened. So really good scene when that happens, but kind of an interesting way to do it. And it does play out a lot of the other things, I would guess, based on kind of the way the two endings work and how they explain it in both of them, that there's not much different narratively in this, but there's definitely huge moments where it's this thing from the first game, this thing from the first game, this thing from the first game keeps coming back.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, did you feel like it was did you feel like up to that point it was it was kind of a good continue? Did it? Because I know the ending. I'm not going to talk about it, but the ending of Life is Strange 1 is a very big difference. Do you feel like your Max matched the ending that you had gotten for the first game? That you're yes, I can understand why, given how I chose to end Life is Strange 1, where Max is now makes sense given that ending, or yeah.
I think they do a good job of, in some of the dialogue outside of those really dramatic moments where it's very clear which one happened. So I actually looked it up, okay, how do they explain Chloe's absence in this if you picked one or the other? And both kind of explain it away in a different way. So basically it's okay, it was either the direct trauma of choosing one option or kind of the indirect trauma of what happened in the next 10 years to create some other issues for Max over that time. That's kind of the way it happened. Yeah. So the thing is, though, I don't feel like they always handled it the best, and that's kind of the one part where it's kind of okay, we keep referencing it, we keep coming back to it, but sometimes Max is really thrown off by it, other times she just brings it up kind of cavalier out of nowhere. So it's kind of weird with that, and again, I think that might differ on, did this character die, did this character not die? I don't know. I feel like we should have spoiled it. It would have been much easier.
Yeah, no, I think there's some assumptions that it's an old game. I get it. Yeah,
but anyway, so the game is for sure at its best in those first two chapters, because that's where you're getting to know everybody, and that's this game's strength, is the characters. You meet Safi, who's Max's new best friend. You meet Moses, who's kind of the third person in their group. You meet a couple people who are romance options in this, who are both very, very well done. A couple other professors that have that undertone of are they evil, are they not evil, and they're played really are they doing bad things or not really well for the first couple chapters. The music in the game is excellent. That carries through all the way, but it comes to this point. And I don't want to spoil it, but basically, so the cruxes of the main game is that somebody gets murdered, and you are trying to figure out why they get murdered. What happened? You're investigating. It's somebody close to you. They get murdered. Let's go explore this. What happened? How'd they get murdered? Max, in the process of doing this, learns that her time power that she's kind of avoided using for the last 10 years, basically because oh my god, everything got really screwed up when I used it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do that. So now hasn't used it for 10 years, but tries to do it to kind of work with some of this mystery thing, and basically ends up creating two timelines. And that's kind of your power in this, is bouncing between two timelines. So there's one scene where a police officer's talking to somebody, and you're oh man, there's this thing that's kind of incriminating in this room. Well, if I go back and forth between timelines, I can sneak in the room in the other timeline, bounce back to this timeline, and then I'm in the room, grab the thing, sneak out, bounce back to the other timeline. So it does a lot of cool things sneaking
cool.
because Max can kind of move around in the timelines, and wherever she enters or exits stays the same in the next place. So when you're explaining your powers to somebody, you're no, watch, I'm just going to disappear in the other timeline, and now I'll come back, and then right back. So it's kind of this weird,
cool.
almost invisibility thing while you're in this other timeline.
Gotcha.
Again, it works pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds kind of neat.
But there's this moment. Yes. In chapter 3, where all these weird things start happening. And you're okay, is this a result of Max's time power? Is this people crossing over from different timelines? Are there more than one timelines? Are other people? And you just kind of have all these theories in your head. And just as you start to unravel what happened with this murder and who's murdering people and how it happened and who's connected, it just all just like goes so downhill so fast. And it's just like, I don't like that. I don't like that. That was a bad choice. Why is this what's happening? Why is that the case? That's not good. And it just culminates in this ending that's just like the most, this isn't what I want from this game feeling I've ever had. Where it's like, this is not the resolution I wanted.
Aren't like the Life is Strange games like known for ending strong? Like, isn't that kind of like almost like a
I would say they all end strong with the exception of this one.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
That's also what I feel like is weird with this. Is I feel like all the other Life is Strange games are just this great uphill climb the whole way, where it's like, ooh, it's getting better, it's getting better, it's getting better, it's getting better, it's getting better. Ooh, ending great, that was awesome, I love it. And it's like, oh yeah, we're right back with Max. This is great, things are going well. What's happening? What's happening? No. Why?
Is it because it's like the kind of story you don't like, or is it like I know I did. It's always hard to talk about these games. You have to kind of talk around it. Is it like because it wasn't Life is Strange, or is it just at a basic storytelling level, like this just isn't interesting or not good?
I think what ends up happening is there's just too much. There's so many different things at play here with so few characters that everything just starts feeling like it's one of those where it's like, if everything's important, then nothing's important. It gets to that a little bit where it's like, this thing's really important and that thing's really important. And again, the early moments of this game are you're investigating this murder. Like, you're trying to figure out who murdered this person that you know. And you figure that out in chapter 3 of 5. And then after that, it's like, okay, well, who cares about the murder anymore? Now we're just wondering about this weird stuff that's going on. And it gets very like sci-fi towards the end, where it's just like, we're no longer just this like, who murdered this person? I'm going to use my superpower to figure it out, and da-da-da-da-da, and I'm making relationships and kind of trying to figure out what people's motives are and all those kind of things that you get in the other ones. And it turns into this like really like big, like, okay, like what's going on? Like, who's experiencing this? What's experiencing this? There's like big supernatural events at the end, more so even than the big storm that you see in the first game. Like, just
it kind of sounds like a Marvel movie kind of thing, like those Marvel TV shows that kind of like, I'm trying to be smug because I know you like Marvel stuff, but I'm just thinking like, I was just thinking WandaVision because I really liked WandaVision, and then at the end they're like shooting lasers with each other. Like, I feel like the show like didn't need to get to that point. Yes. It was just like a different thing, and then right at the end it's like, okay, I guess we're doing this now. Is that kind of what it feels like?
It does. There's a little bit more build up to it than I think there is in like WandaVision, where it's like,
sure,
okay, we're heading in the direction of this, and then there's like one super crazy moment where like, I don't understand what's going on, and then there's another moment where like, I really don't understand what's going on. Like, this feels more like an Alan Wake game than a Life is Strange game out of nowhere. I almost want to spoil ending stuff because there's some ending stuff that literally feels like it's directly out of the MCU, like to the point where it's like, I'm pretty sure you watch too many Marvel movies and like, well, this works for Marvel movies, let's try it in Life is Strange and see what happens. And it's just like, what? No, that's not what this is. That's not what we want. And it just it leaves characters so completely open-ended. And again, I think what my prediction interpretation of what we're trying to do here is go, okay, how do we recenter Life is Strange on Max? Because Max is probably the best or third best character. Like, she's one of the best characters in the series. Like, we did that. Like, Life is Strange 2, like, character's kind of forgettable. True Colors actually really liked Alex, but I don't know if she was quite as looked at as fondly as like Max was from the first game. But it very much at the end just feels like, okay, we're going to leave this all open-ended and we're going to start making more Life is Strange games that are direct sequels. And I think I really liked Life is Strange at this kind of like interesting thing of like, okay, here's a person in a horrible situation who gains these powers, who can figure it out, whether it's like in Life is Strange 2, where you're like running away from home and then you get this telekinesis power, or, you know, in True Colors, you're in this new town, you're experiencing these new things, there's this horrible event that happens and you're kind of in the center of it. Like, that's where I like this game, and this feels like it's like towards the end really pushing hard to be like, no, we have to be like this big event. We need a big event. We need that WandaVision end fight. And it's not what I want from the series. And they really just didn't do enough to earn it. You know what I mean? Where it's like, you didn't earn this. You never earned this. There is a major heel turn in this, and it's like, that was completely unearned. Like, some choices maybe I made differently than others, but even if I made the other choices, it still doesn't feel like that character should have gone in this direction. Max is just kind of in the center of this. I'm like, I don't know what the hell to do with any of this. Like, by the end of it, she's like, At the end, it literally just feels like Max is like, well, some stuff happened, and I don't really know what to do about it. Roll credits. And that's kind of how like the
That's such a bummer. Yeah.
air out of the balloon ending of it is just like, okay, well, this stuff happened, I guess. Do we know what happened with that?
Yeah.
Nope. Do we know what happened with that? Nope.
Because I mean the end pretty like I was saying the end like from what I understand like I'm pretty strongly and pretty conclusively. While this seems like part one of a new bad thing,
Yeah.
it's like the impression that I'm kind of getting from it. It's like it is kind of like sort of interesting when games. I'm always like I think IP should always be changing and doing new things,
Not
but
this
like
way.
I think it's like it's yeah, but it's just interesting because Life is Strange really excelled at being small.
Yes.
And like it seems like this one is just like it kind of lost the confidence to be small, which is I don't know, it's kind of disappointing and sad.
And that's the thing. Like it feels very confident in those first couple episodes because it is this small game. It's just Max hanging out with her friends. It's all this stuff. It's a murder. Okay, well, who's connected to it? Ooh, this person was doing something shady. Let's break into their office and look around their office. Like yes, that is Life is Strange. And then the end, it's like, well, I can go between timelines and maybe there's a third timeline. And what happens if this timeline messing up that timeline? And it's just like, this is so like, we don't have, there's just not enough. We're not tying the pieces together. We're throwing, it feels like, what if this? Okay, well, that didn't work. Well, what if this? Okay, well, what if this? Okay, well, we forgot about that first thing. And the second thing, like we can loosely tie that in. It's just a mess. It's just a bunch of just open threads at the end. And to wrap this up, episodes 1 through 3, arguably my favorite game of the year. Episodes 4 and 5, arguably make it not even in my top 10 games this year.
Yeah. Oh man, what a bummer.
And and I think it's just that it's a feeling of disappointment. It's so much disappointment. It's like this again. It's just this high of Max's back. These first 2 chapters are so good, and then it's just this constant letdown by the end of like I'm not even enjoying this. I don't care anymore. Just end it. Just make it over, and then please go like credits, and we'll come back to Max in another 10 years and try and fix this, and we'll have 2 really good ones in between.
Congrats, Workforce Gaming. Yeah. It's like congrats, Workforce Gaming fans. Like when we don't like games, we usually just don't talk about them. It's like, why are you guys so positive? It's like, well, we just don't talk about the games we don't like. So it's always like the rare review where it's like I felt so strongly about not liking this game
that we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. A slightly negative review. I don't know. Like I still think it's a fine game. Like. Those first 3 chapters are so good. And that's where I'm so stuck because it's just like I really, really, really like so much of it, and then I really, really dislike so much. It's so weird. Anyway, we are Workforce Gaming. Subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment below. There's links for us on Caufield as well. We'll see you later.
Bye.